You're really good at it, Jason. You're the best at reading the script. The best ever.
Next year, if I'm not chair, I'm going to just volunteer my time to read the script anyway. I just love it so much. I might read the script if we're in person. I don't know if I'll be able to stop.
You will have to read it because when we go
I
on
know, Erica. I'm
hybrid.
just messing. That's why you're so good, Erica. Like, you just keep us on.
Jason has found his calling.
That's right. All right, it's 5:30. I will read the script before we get into county, and then we'll do regular select board meeting. So the open meeting of the select board is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the select board is convening by video conference via Zoom webinar, as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all the attendees are participating by video conference. We'll do a roll call. We'll do board members first. Please let me know if you are present. Melissa Murphy.
Here.
Matt Fee.
Here.
Christy Ferrantella.
Here.
And, oh, there's Dawn. Hi, Dawn. And Dawn is here as well. She just waved. For staff, I'll read your name out as I see you. Amy Baxter.
Here.
Erica Mooney.
Present.
Brian Turbot.
In attendance.
Janet Schulte.
Here.
Jericho O'Malley.
In attendance.
Stephen Murphy.
Here.
And let's see, Rob Rainey. Oh, Rob, are you here for your town position?
No, for steamship.
Okay, all right. Did I miss anybody? Oh, Chief Pittman.
I'm here.
Thank you. And then we have Vicky Marsh from Town Council.
Here.
And do I see anybody else? I think that's it. Rob is here for the steamship. Okay. We finish up the script. We're using Zoom webinar for meetings, which allows for the public to participate in the meeting as an attendee. If you want to speak, please raise your digital hand. I'll take them in order that I see them. I'll call on those. Yep, got that. All supporting materials that have been provided to the members of this body are available on the town's website, otherwise noted. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. If you're on as a participant, you're not speaking, please turn your camera off. And let's see. Finally, each vote will be taken. This meeting will be conducted by roll call. So, Dawn, over to you for county.
Trying to pull up the agenda. I only have one screen. I will call the county commissioners meeting to order. And hold on. Sorry.
Move approval of the minutes.
And is it's being video and audio recorded. No are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none. Thank you. I believe Matt made a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Yep.
I'll
second.
Roll call. Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Jason Bridges.
Aye.
Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. Approval of payroll and treasury warrants.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call. Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Jason Bridges.
Aye.
Melissa Murphy.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. That's approved unanimously. Application introduction review of applications and appointment for the Steamship Authority. I know that we have Rob Ranny on. Rob, did you want to say anything?
Thank you, Dawn. I was just going to say that it's been a privilege and an honor to serve up until this
Okay,
point.
and I don't believe that, oh, Rob, did you want to speak?
He was speaking.
I wanted to say it's been a privilege and an honor to serve up to this point. I would like to continue with your blessing, but that's obviously up to you all.
Thank you, Rob. I don't believe that the other candidate is on. And how are we doing this? Just sending an email to Erica?
Yes. You all will email me your vote for the appointment, and then I will read them and confirm the votes. Okay. It looks like all 5 members voted for Rob Ranny. Can you just confirm that, please?
Yes.
Confirmed.
Yes.
So Rob Ranny is appointed unanimously for another 3-year term, 2-year term, 3-year term, 3.
Up next, I believe that we are, congratulations, Rob. I believe that we are switching the NPDC representative.
I'll make
And
Motion to appoint Matt.
Second.
all those in favor by roll call, Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Melissa Murphy,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. Sorry, I keep having to jump back here. Are there any commissioners' reports or comments? And is there a motion to adjourn? Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Melissa Murphy,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. That carries unanimously. And over to you, Jason.
Thank you, Don. We'll call the order of the December 15th Select Board meeting to order. No changes to the agenda. Announcements. Over to you, Libby.
Thank you. As we know, this meeting is being video and audio recorded. We have had our vaccine clinic announcement on the agenda for quite a while now. This is for the town's walk-in clinic on Sundays at the 131 Pleasant Street site. And that will be closing down after this Sunday and most likely reopen in January. And in light of, I think we're experiencing a statewide, nationwide, region-wide surge right now in COVID cases. We've asked Jericho to come on in Roberto's place, who's not here tonight, to just review a few things that have been going on, and there may be some questions from the board. Jericho?
Hello, everyone. I was hoping I would never have to do this kind of update again, but here we are. I will begin by very briefly covering the current state of cases. We have a total number of PCR confirmed positives since the 7th of December at 72 total cases in the past 7 days. That is current up to the 13th. Average case per day is about 10, which, just to mention, is exactly what the wastewater predicted last week. We also know that there are a significant number of rapid tests being done. Antigen tests are not included in these totals. There may be some overlap between the two of them, but the number of positives is absolutely higher than 72. We got our wastewater in today. I'm not sure if that's been posted yet. If it has not, it shows the single largest 1-week spike increase yet. Both in absolute number, that is the total amount of virus found in the wastewater system, and in relative value compared to other towns doing testing. We have significantly increased the amount of COVID. It's a steady build. So this is and we're far enough out from Stroll and from Thanksgiving that this is almost certainly community spread. Additionally, we have not had any sequencing of the Omicron here locally, but it is an extremely safe bet to assume that that is at least in part responsible for the new increase in cases, as it has been following basically the same pattern that we've been seeing in Denmark and a couple of other places where the total number of Delta cases does not appear to decrease, but new cases tend to be overwhelmingly Omicron. Just a little bit of background on Omicron and what we know about it. Omicron is the most mutated variant of COVID yet. Delta, which was two major mutations, was significantly wider spread. Omicron has about 30, so it is very effective at getting through natural immunity, and it most likely will infect you even if you're vaccinated. However, the good news is there is no increase in excess deaths in any of the countries that have identified the Omicron variant inboard. So Omicron is not more lethal in practice than Delta was. They haven't decreased either, so it's probably not mild as some people were forecasting it. And it does seem to spread even faster than Delta did. At the moment, testing capacity is somewhat strained, although there have been pretty good strides in increasing the number of tests per day available through NCH and through other providers. Let's see, I believe that's basically where I was going to do for the major update. If anyone has any questions, now would be the ideal time. Specifically about case numbers, I'll discuss vaccines afterwards.
Any questions? Okay.
Okay, so current vaccine operations are going apace. Basically everywhere anyone is doing vaccines has been trying desperately to increase the number of booster appointments they can support. There have been extra days added both at health imperatives and at the hospital. And then Dan's is continuing its remarkably rapid progress on doing Moderna vaccinations. All three of those organizations are still accepting appointments. And we've found out that due to the intake process being more efficient for NCH and for health imperatives and for Dan's, we've decided that the most effective way for us to increase the total number of booster shots given is that we are beginning to staff other people's clinics. So while we may be standing down the standing clinic, we are not reducing the total number of vaccinations we're doing with our clinical staff. Additionally, there is the incoming school clinic for pediatric, so basically 5 to 17-year-olds and boosters. There will be, I'm told, some capacity for excess doses to be distributed there. And then the final standing clinic for first and second doses is now going to be this Sunday. We have some Johnson & Johnson. If anyone has not had a first dose, that would be what we recommend. We can provide what we have left of our internal Pfizer stock to anyone who is interested in getting their second dose done. Let's see. Yeah, so I think the total number of appointments per week is going to increase, but it's still going to be in the hundreds per week category, whereas the demand is in the thousands per week. So you'll have a sharp decline in the demand as we get past a certain threshold, but short of significant state input into the labor pool here, we're not going to be able to meet all demand before the beginning of next year. Additionally, the state has recently announced an initiative to distribute rapid stay-home tests. They are beginning to supplement both the vaccination supply and the take-home test supplies, but they're beginning with the 100 most impacted communities in Massachusetts, and we are not on that list. So it will be, again, likely not until the end of this year or beginning of next year before state resources to provide so that's hopefully sizable number of tests. That will be not this year, I do not believe.
Jericho, could you clarify for me on the kind of the mobile unit that's coming, giving vaccinations? So it's just for 5 to 17, whatever's left over can be a booster for adults?
Yes. They did a they did pre-registration of appointments. They prioritized school children, and then the remainder were freed up for third dose options. And then because it filled up so quickly, they're going to see if there is any not mismanagement, if there's any missed appointments, et cetera, whatever they have on hand will likely be distributed, although it will not be a guarantee for anyone.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts or questions? Christy?
I know Governor Baker's new test kits are going to, the 100 most impacted communities. Is there anything that we can do as a board to send a letter or have Julian Sear or Dylan Fernandez get involved just to try to bring support here? I just keep hearing how hard it is to get tested and vaccinated here. And we're just such a small community that it's going to impact us just as heavily if we don't take steps now.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. I am a relative newcomer to the political angle on this, so I don't know the best path forward on that front. It can't hurt, certainly. But we are in the midst of a state and nationwide surge. So every place is equally, well, not equally impacted, but every place is impacted. So it's going to be difficult to free up resources until sort of the surge is capped. And another thing to expect is that this is the long trail of the infections that started around Thanksgiving. The unseasonably warm weather for most of the fall kind of delayed it. But if you look at the pattern of spikes we've had, it's going to be the same as last year, with the potential that this spike continues through the post-holidays spike. So it's probably case numbers are going to increase steadily for a while before they decrease, which may delay freeing up resources here.
Jericho, I think Roberto also told me yesterday, and maybe you as well, that at some point very soon, towns will be able to purchase rapid tests at a very discounted rate statewide. So as soon as those become available, I think we're planning to order a whole lot of them.
We actually have, I just got literally the second that you said that, I got a text from our public health nurse saying she has requested tests through DPH. She will get back to us on the answer as soon as that comes. It will have to be slightly different than the distribution method we had last summer, beginning or end of August, where I think there is going to have to be a more managed distribution, as we went through about 4,000 tests in less than about 17 days, and there was some stockpiling going on. So we have a little work to do on effective distribution methods. And there probably will be a cost to the town that will be passed on to the people who collect them, although that is to be determined. But that was actually quicker than I expected the ordering process to be possible. So it may be quicker than I anticipate.
Yeah, Jericho, I think if you guys come up with some way to make sure it's kind of fair, no one's quote unquote hoarding, or if you put some, even if it was $2 a test, something, right? It just changes the parameters, because then you have to pay, you have to show, you have some way of tracking it. It could be with businesses, nonprofits, could get first take at it.
And I think there's a very important use case for certain types of facilities that require on-hand testing and immediate answers. So we will be doing a distribution method that is both, egalitarian and also, targeted to the people who require immediate test results to continue their daily operations. But yeah, it'll definitely be, oh my, interesting. Sorry, I get lots of news all the time, so the news stories popping up. But basically, yeah, it's going to be, that's actually another thing that I need to stress right now as hard as I can, is that if you do a rapid test, please get it confirmed as soon as you can with a PCR test. We are missing lots of positives across the island. So we don't actually, we don't have a very clear picture of what the actual case count is. I wouldn't be surprised if the 13th 25 positives were undercounted by, between 50 and 75%, just given the number of people have had calling looking for rapid tests or, related supplies. So if you do get a rapid test and you do come back positive, please get it confirmed as soon as you can with a PCR test. at either Nantucket Cottage Hospital or at Dental Arts, which is still doing same day.
Christy?
Thanks. Just wondering with the wastewater coming back with such high viral loads, they're going to be a mandate or reviewed with the Board of Health?
So there luckily is a Board of Health meeting tomorrow. I'm sure that will be the primary topic of discussion, but I do not know which way it's going to go. It will have to be discussion held there. I'm sure it will be open for public comment as well. I think that you probably should wear a mask anywhere you're indoors in public. I've thought that for months now, and I do my best to try and do that. I think that that's a good idea for everyone. We have a more communicable disease that is able to reinfect people who have natural immunity and can infect people who have vaccine immunity, even the boosted. So it is, you don't want to get COVID, even if there's no signs of increased hospitalization or death as of yet. You don't want to get COVID. It can be very bad, it can be very expensive, and it can be debilitating. The long COVID studies are still ongoing. So, you know, it's worth being careful. We're not as bad. We're not in the same situation we were last winter. We have a variety of new treatments. We spoke to the hospital about the various COVID targeted antivirals that are coming onto the market. There's infusion centers with monoclonal antibodies. So we are in much better shape in terms of things, but we are not out of the woods yet. And this will continue in much the same pattern as it did last year. It's a seasonal virus. It thrives when there's gatherings. We have had or will be having the 3 largest gatherings of the year. So it's important to be careful for yourself. And again, for the people who either cannot be vaccinated or are at especially high risk, even if they are vaccinated.
Christy, then Matt.
All right, one more question. I just seen today that the Vineyard is having the same surge that we are, and they were able to get a mobile bus to do vaccines. Is that something that they did through their own public health department, or was that state funded? And is there anything we could do similarly?
I am reasonably sure that they reached out to the same unit that has sent out the school and pediatric vaccination group. We are definitely have some irons in the fire there, and we will hope to get some additional vaccinating and booster resources through the state. It's a more complex and challenging logistical problem getting to and from Nantucket. And there is the ever-present housing issue, which complicates any kind of prolonged presence on the island.
Jericho. Matt?
Yeah, a couple things. Nantucket Cottage Hospital, they may have opened up more vaccines because I had one, more openings. I had one, I got my booster set for, I think, January 3rd. And previously they weren't even showing anything. So, and Dan's was out at the end of January. So I do think what you're talking about, Jericho, adding some people in has, hopefully picked up the pace a little bit. I believe you're right on the undercount. I know a couple different crews that have at least 1 or 2 people sick. I'm not sure they've had, and I'm not sure they've gone and had a PCR test, but I know that there's been a couple people, and I think it is, a little easier to get. I can't prove that, but that's sort of what they're saying. When you look at the spike in South Africa, the graph is almost straight up. It isn't kind of like it isn't a steep ramp like before, but it went almost straight up over a few days, and it's pretty crazy. I think the masks, people are wearing them. You go into Stop and Shop now, and half or 3/4 had them on. A week and a half ago, hardly anybody had them on. So I think people are taking it seriously and are realizing they've got to protect themselves. So those are my comments.
I understand too. Your feeling about the number of both appointments for testing and for vaccines are borne out by the numbers. Like there's a 50% increase in the number of tests done this past 7 day period versus the one before. There are resources we can use to increase testing volume that we cannot use to increase booster volume. So I would expect testing volume to increase more rapidly than booster volume. And again, it really is it's a labor bandwidth problem. It's difficult to spare staff from their other clinical obligations to also do vaccines. So it remains a balancing act, I think, for all parties involved. Oh, you're muted, Jason.
Any other questions or comments from Jericho? Okay, thank you for coming on at last minute. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Okay, Libby, is there a couple more announcements?
Yeah, so next we've got just an announcement that there's a joint planning board select board meeting scheduled for your meeting on January 5th to fill the vacancy on the planning board. Erica, do we have any appointments? Applications right now?
None have come in yet.
Okay, thank you. And the names will be known at your meeting and they'll be in the packet for that meeting. In accordance with the committee appointment policy, we do have some names to review for applications that have been submitted for the Cannabis Advisory Committee and the Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust. Jason, do you want to read those or? Oh.
Yep, I can do that.
Okay.
Well, for the Cannabis Advisory Committee, we have two applicants, Ruth Hanako and Joseph Plandowski. Give me 1 second here. And for Affordable Housing Trust, we have, what is that, 8 applicants. That's amazing. Those Meg Browers, Julian Kever, sorry if I mispronounce any names, Tarji Cummings, Darcy Volpe, Ruth Tonico, Tara Restieri, Chantal Blois, and RJ Turcotte.
Thank you. And lastly, there's select board announcements and comments, but just for the public's knowledge, this is our last meeting before the end of the year. Your next meeting is scheduled for January 5th.
Thank you, Libby. Any select board announcements or comments here at the beginning? Nothing? Okay. There's no follow-up comments for prior select board meetings. Is there any public comment that's not on the agenda? And you can go to Campbell Sutton. Brooke Moore, I'm sorry, I did see your hand up and I didn't get to it during the COVID conversation. So if you wanted to speak now, you can. Can we go to Campbell Sutton?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking my comment tonight.
Sorry about that. Campbell, start again.
Yeah. Said unmute. Am I unmuted?
No, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, super. Well, thank you very much for taking my comment this evening. I hope to keep it fairly brief. I just wanted to make a comment on, I didn't even read the whole article, I'll be honest. It was in Daybreak Nantucket where the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is looking to purchase property at 12 and 12R Bartlett Road. And I just wanted to express my concerns about that particular purchase. I had been under the impression that the funds that have been voted to assist in affordable housing, part of the goal, my understanding was to spread affordable housing around the island. And I know that people are working very hard to do that. I just would like to comment on the choice of Bartlett Road. It would appear to me from Vesper Lane to Fairgrounds Road has really become the hub of affordable housing and workforce housing. And that troubles me a bit. We have on Bartlett, we have considerable workforce housing in both Essex Road, where we are seeing an increasing number of covenant homes coming in on those lots. In that same 12R area, I believe there are a number of apartments, and on Boynton Lane, which backs up to it, are a number of workforce housing situations. And, you know, on the Vesper and Surfside, we have housing. McLean's area is generally a, you know, workforce housing. There's the development on Surfside and Fairgrounds for affordable housing. I'm not against affordable housing or workforce housing. I just feel like if we were loading a boat, we would be overloading one side of the boat. And so I'd like, the one property that came to my mind today as I was thinking about this is that property at Dave Street and Orange Street that I believe maybe 3 years ago, could have been 4. Anyway, there was an apartment building approved for that area. I believe it is zoned in such a way as to accommodate apartments. I think that would be a great spot. It has great access to shopping, transportation, Boys and Girls Club, the schools, parks. And I also was feeling like the topography of that area would really lend itself to a nice blending of a stepped apartment building that might be able to hide the size, if you will. And it seems to be a property that was sitting for quite some time. I'm sure there are things going on with it, but I just really like to continue to encourage spreading workforce and affordable housing out. And on Fairgrounds, as we all know, but I did forget to mention, we have the apartments going in at 31 Fairgrounds. We have Tacoma Green going in. And, you know, a lot of people put a lot of effort into challenging the Surfside Crossing development and its affordable housing. So for many of the reasons I have stated, so I would really just like to see greater spread, if you will, so that certain areas aren't overburdened with the vehicular traffic that comes from workforce housing. There are those that do take public transport, but an awful lot of them have their own vehicles, and it just really compounds an already tight situation on Bartlett. And I guess that's all I really had to say. I do appreciate everyone's efforts towards finding properties, et cetera. So I'm not opposed to affordable housing. Just I'd like the goal of spreading it throughout the island to maybe get more traction. So thank you for your comments. I appreciate all the work you guys do on the select board and your support staff, et cetera. So thanks for listening.
Thank you, Campbell. Can we go to Brooke Moore?
Thanks, Jason. I'd like to go back, if I can, to COVID. And I don't know if Jericho's still on, but I wanted to ask, what is the expectation now for people who have been exposed, who know they have been exposed to someone who has been tested positive? I think there may be some confusion in the community about what you should and shouldn't do if you have been exposed. I would love some clarification on that for myself and in general.
Yeah, Jericho's not on anymore, but we can I think it's some conversations that I've heard too. How long do you quarantine? Is it the same as last year? What happens if you're vaccinated? So if that's not on the website, I think we should try to get it out there. Some messaging. So
Thanks.
can we make sure we get that to Jericho? Okay, Christy?
I was just going to add what the CDC recommends is that if you're vaccinated, you wear a mask. But if you're not vaccinated, then that's when you need to quarantine. But I would just double check the CDC site and agree that the town can put it on the website as well.
I'm sure it's there. Thank you, Brooke. Anything else? Okay.
For me, no.
Yep. Thanks, Brooke. Sorry, I saw your hand up earlier with that and
Yeah.
I missed it.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any more public comment that's not on the agenda? I don't see any more hands. There's no new business that I know of. Approval of minutes, payroll warrants, and treasury warrants. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor by roll call. Christy?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Jason, aye. That passes unanimously. Approval of pending contracts for December 15th. Libby, was there anything you wanted to review?
Yes, I just want to make note of a couple things. First off, there is an amendment to a contract that the town has with Weston and Sampson for the Parks Master Plan. And this amendment will help us re-review the Tom Nevers recommendations in the Park Master Plan due to a couple of things. Number one, the Coastal Resiliency Plan coming out after the Parks Master Plan came out, and two, FEMA sea level rise projections coming out after the plan came out as well. We're also going to be taking a bit of a look at the Delta property with respect to possible field reconfiguration in conjunction with our review of that property for a future potential relocation of the Department of Public Works there. And I wanted to point out that we do have an interim nursing home administrator for our island home in place as of this week. And we have a contract with Eisenstein Flaherty Associates for that person. And we are going to be talking with them a little bit more as we proceed into the new year about management services at our island home to try to get more of a stable handle on administration there. Just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Libby. Any questions or comments? If not, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Christy?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Jason, aye. That all pending contracts pass unanimously. Thank you. Over to real estate matters, request for approval and execution of consent of subdivision and conveyance of portions of 9 Auriga. Am I pronouncing that right? Vicky, you're going to walk us through these?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jason. So both of these consents are actually related to one another. And so they are approvals for consent for subdivision and conveyance of portion of 9 Auriga, lots 2 and 3, which are shown on a plan 2021-14. What happened between 9 Auriga and 10 Auriga is that they abut each other. And the owner of 9 Auriga had a swimming pool, which had some setback requirements that needed to be met. And so what you can see is that lots 2 and 3, they've been highlighted. 2 and 3 are sort of like in the middle, and then at the top, the 2 yellow lots are being carved out and conveyed to the owner of 10 Auriga. And then lot 1, which is on 10 Auriga, it was carved out and is being conveyed to the owner of 9 Auriga, so that his it will clarify and solve the setback requirement problem for his pool. So they have come to us, though, after they have already subdivided these lots, and conveyed these lots between each other. As you may be aware, these properties had yard sale parcels that were conveyed to them, to each of these properties. And the yard sale deeds contain a restriction that states that the property owner must obtain prior written consent from the select board in order to either divide, subdivide, or convey their property before they can go ahead and proceed. Unfortunately, these property owners did not come to the select board to obtain the prior written consent, and they have already gone ahead and subdivided these properties and then conveyed the lots. And these deeds are already recorded. And the subdivision plan 2021-14 obviously is recorded as well. So they are now coming to the select board to ask for your approval and consent to be able to basically ratify what they've already done, which is to subdivide and convey portions of their property. And this came to light as a result of the fact that 9 Auriga is actually being sold to a third-party buyer. And that's when they discovered that, they should have come and obtained the consent. So they are now coming before the board to ask your consent to be able to subdivide and convey.
Thank you, Vicky. Matt, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I don't have a problem with actually what's happening here. I do have a problem with something like, does something like this get through the system? If we have, this is written into the, how does that happen? How, and how can we keep it from happening in the future? Because we don't want to be in a situation where something that isn't agreeable to us is approved and allowed, and then we're in the situation trying to take something away after people spend a lot of time and money and expectations. So I would like to, I'm going to vote for this, but I would like I'd like some assurance that this type of, sort of mistake, quote unquote, doesn't happen again. Anyway.
Erica?
In response, there have been a couple other instances that have come before the board requesting consent. So I have to say that the other property owners are aware of it and cognizant and pay attention to these type of restrictions. I don't know whether we can, in order to subdivide the lot, they do have to go to the planning board in order, even for an A&R approval, which is the case in this matter. So I don't know if we can have some discussions with the planning board to, on notice that if there are any properties that were former yard sale acquisitions, that they pay particular attention to make sure that they've gotten the proper approval from the select board before they go ahead and proceed. So I think short of that, or short of putting in the restriction that the property could be that the town would have a right of reverter in the event that they go ahead and do this. I'm not sure whether that really solves the problem, because if they've gone ahead and already subdivided and conveyed, we would just have to undo all of that. And I don't necessarily know whether that solves the problem either.
I follow up, Jason?
Yeah.
My point is they shouldn't be able to, they shouldn't be subdividing, conveying. The planning board knows which properties are which. They know, they have run they've run the yard sale program. This sign off should be, we should have some understanding that this sign off that doesn't come to us after the fact like this. That's all I'm saying. I just feel like it puts us as a select board and administration in a, in a bad situation.
Right.
Yeah, I understand what you mean, Matt. The real estate committee approved the 5-0. You said you'll approve it, it'll pass here. It's more of how do we not let this happen again when it comes here? Yeah. Vicky, go ahead, then I'll go to
another comment. So in this instance, we're lucky that the subdivision and the conveyance is not an objectionable type of conveyance and subdivision of the property. And that's what I would only be concerned about is, if they come to you at a later point after they've done something that you might not have wanted to, ratify and confirm, that I think is when it becomes problematic. And so I do think that perhaps some discussions with, with Andrew Vorse and the planning board, perhaps, maybe to alert them to the fact that, we have to have some kind of procedure that if a lot is asked to be subdivided that previously had a yard sale restriction on it, that they make sure that they've come to the select board first.
Thanks, Vicki. Can we go to the public? Mr. Reed?
Thank you, Jason. I just happen to be on this call. I'm on it for something else that's coming up later. Actually, my office represents the buyer of the property that is in question here, and my partner, Marianne Hanley, identified the issue and the problem and has put in motion the fact that this needs to be done. I think that the bottom line of this, I understand and hear everything that Matt has been saying, and I agree with him. I'm not sure there's an easy way to deal with it, other than the fact that it is the responsibility of a lawyer representing a buyer to identify the issue, which is, of course, exactly what Marianne has done in this case, and put into motion the procedure that's before you right now to straighten the situation out. I think it's actually asking an awful lot of the planning department to catch an issue like this every time, because when you're dealing with the movement of lot lines between parcels, which is what this is, that's something that the parties are entitled to do as a matter of right under the subdivision control law, and the planning board has to endorse the plans. Obviously, if the planning staff identifies in a particular case that there's an issue, it would obviously be advisable for that to be brought up at that point. But they don't necessarily always have the information in front of them to be able to identify that issue. But basically, as in so many things relating to real estate transfers, this is up to conveyancing lawyers to catch and stop. And in this case, fortunately, that's what we've done. Thanks.
Thanks, Arthur. Matt?
So let's pretend there isn't a conveyance. Let's just pretend they're fixing it because they want to, and then they fix it, and it runs for X amount of years. Isn't there a point of time where it's, what would it only be caught in conveyance, or is there a time where it is, where after a certain amount of time it's allowed and legal?
Go ahead, Arthur. You can, if you want to answer that.
Yeah, if I can answer that. It's a very good question, and there's no clear-cut answer to it. And nothing is going to happen unless and until somebody raises the issue. But bear in mind that there is actually reverter language in the deeds. I haven't looked at the particular ones that we're looking at here, but there is normally reverter language in the deeds of these yard sale parcels from the town that result in a reverter in the event that the parcels are not merged together and then held permanently as merged parcels in accordance with the provisions of the deed. So actually, once again, we're dealing with something that's a further burden on town officials, but the town could spot a situation like this by monitoring from time to time yard sale transactions to see if the properties have been properly merged, and once they've been merged, if there have been any changes that would violate the rules. Sooner or later, somebody is going to sell the property, and sooner or later, I would certainly hope that there is going to be a lawyer representing a buyer who is going to be smart enough to pick up the point. I think the reverter language in the deed runs something like 99 years, so it's going to go well into the future without there being any situation in which the town would no longer be able to enforce its rights.
Thank you, Arthur. Vicki?
So, Arthur, you're correct that there is reverter language in there. And so the reverter basically is for a period of, they have 24 months in which to combine the yard sale parcel with the actual property that they currently own. So that's where the right of reverter right now is in place on that restriction there. And then they're also subject to the prohibition to subdivide or convey without prior consent. And that restriction is for 99 years. So, you know, the town does have the right to be able to enforce the restrictions, but as you've said, it's not always brought to the town's attention. And in this case, I've been working with Attorney Hanley on this matter. It hadn't been brought, no one really knew about it until Attorney Hanley had brought it to everyone's attention. So, you know, we're here now fixing a problem that unfortunately had already happened.
Thank you, Vicki. I think we're going to take Mr. Atherton. We're going to try to move on. I think we can work on this internally with Libby and Andrew if there's anything that we can do. Thank you, Arthur. Thank you, Vicki. Can we go to Rick Atherton?
All right. Am I unmuted now, Jason?
Yes, go ahead, Rick.
Jason, thanks for taking the comment. It would seem to me to sort of follow up on the inquiries on this item is to identify where along the application to the planning board that someone missed this in the deeds or in the regulatory area. And without identifying that, it's easy to just sort of gloss over it. I always like to think that when someone or a party owning property makes an application to the planning board, in effect, it's like I'm certifying I've done the work necessary to make sure I've checked all the issues. And if someone in this case didn't do that, the only way you can assure that it's caught in the future is to identify specifically along the way where that happened and talk to that person. Otherwise, I don't think there's any way people are going to pay close attention. So I would encourage you to do that and make sure that process deficiency was identified specifically in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Is there any more questions for Vicki or any comments? I know they're all connected, but we'll take them one by one. It's a pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. By roll call, Melissa?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Jason, aye. That passes. Okay, we have the second one, which is, do we need to review it again, Vicki?
No, it's basically the same consent, only affecting Tenerica, so no.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Unless,
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, Melissa?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Jason, aye. That passes. And number 3, also affecting Tenerica. Is there a motion?
To approve.
Nope.
No.
Sorry, that's off the agenda.
So
Sorry.
lot 5 has been pulled.
Never mind.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
Withdrawn.
Okay. All right, so we'll rescind any of those motions, and I'll take a vote on that. Anything else, Vicki?
No, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Happy holidays.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, we will open the public hearing to consider renewal of annual license categories, including common victualler, local entertainment, rental car agencies, local flower, produce vendors, automatic amusement devices, mobile food units, and motor vehicle class 1, 2, and 3, and open air parking. Amy is here to give us a little overview.
Yes, thank you. So I think what I'm going to do, I think as we discussed, go over the general overview, go into my summary in each category, see if there's questions, then go to public comment and then discussion on votes and things of that sort. Does that sound about right? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. So as you said, it's annual renewal time where we go through the renewal process of licenses. Earlier in December, we discussed liquor. So this year we are doing more of the local licenses, as you noted. I just want to go over a couple of the all regulations and things to consider. A couple considerations. This is for renewal of existing licenses, which allows for the process to begin for issuing licenses to operate. I always like to point out renewal for the most part is allowed by right. And then there are obviously the inspections and other requirements in each category that will actually issue the license. So we're in the renewal process. And again, different businesses have to go through that process. So those are two different things. And some legal comments here for entertainment licenses. Legal counsel strongly recommends that there be a notice and hearing in order to consider if there's any considerations for changes or anything that comes up in that category, which is something we certainly I think would apply to most things. There's certain statutes and freedom of speech issues that require that hearing for entertainment. Local licenses, the other licenses, common vicular, mobile food unit, etc. We don't have the same statutory restrictions on limitations and adding conditions. There would not be a legal problem with making changes to what was issued in the past. If any licensees are unhappy with any changes or denials, they can file a complaint to challenge it. But the board should just make sure there are same reasons and documentations on record to counter any claim that the decision was arbitrary or inconsistent with other similar licenses. So just in summary there, we'll go through the different categories. I'll make whatever comments we have here. If anything does come up, either in public comment in our discussion that needs to be looked at further, I would probably recommend that we go to a future hearing to discuss any claims there against any denials. So if I can move forward, any questions?
Yeah, Amy, I'm just going to say it's one public hearing. So once we close it, and we'll vote the whole thing, but we'll take it in sections and each section we'll see if any board members or the public wants to talk about each section.
Sounds great. Okay. So we're going to start with common vicular. So common vicular applies to food service establishments, and I want to point out this year a definition for that because we are amending kind of who is required for this license and what we do in the future. This particular license is governed by MGL Chapter 140, definition being every food service establishment with capabilities for cooking, preparing, serving food, which provides seating for the immediate consumption therein is required to have this license. In the past, a lot of folks that did not have seating or were purely takeout at other categories were required to have this license. So as we look at some non-renewals and those that may not be on the list that you would expect to be, that is why we're tightening up that definition. So we're kind of cleaning up that list. So that's why I did note that the list may not be comprehensive in light of these changes and changes to businesses during the state of emergency. So takeout establishments have been removed as identified. So upon renewal each year, all these licenses are required for their usual permits and inspections through health, building and fire departments as required. So that's what we review before issuing the license for the year. Some will be doing it now. Some will do that as they open in the spring. So we do allow that time period to happen. They go through renewal process and then the issuing process sometimes is delayed until they are open. So inspections are current. I think I reviewed the non-renewal information. Looking ahead to 2022, we're going to do some updating and have some local business license regulations for common viculars. We don't have a specific language for that now. Currently, most towns do, so we will be adding that and updating to possibly include fee based on seating numbers. That's something we want to add. And then consideration of additional licenses for those additional food categories to include the takeout establishments formerly included with common viculars. I'll also note that those takeout establishments we may have removed from the list still have to go through the same health permit requirements. Nothing has changed in that sense. So they will still be properly licensed. It's just a technical state license term there. So we're going to remove that. Go ahead.
Any questions for the board? I think that's a good overview of common vicular. Any questions for Amy? We don't have to vote on it, but any board members or anybody in the public who wants to speak on Common vicular? Okay.
And I'll just make a quick, if I may, just summary in each of these. I'll bring up any non-renewals again. I listed some of the takeouts that were still on the list, Fresh Hub, Island Coffee, Juice Bar, and others that were previously on the list. And then several properties, 29 Fair, Annie's, Boarding House, Brotherhood, 56 Union were all involved in property sales. So new applications will be required for those, and most are in process with new applications. So that's why they're on the non-renewal list. If I may move to entertainment, a couple things. The entertainment license, I think I brought up the requirements. Should we make any changes? I went over that. What I wanted to go over is a couple things looking ahead for 2022. This is another area too that before the pandemic we were in the process of and look to continue this year. Finally, is local business license regulations for entertainment. Again, to try to bring it more into be more fair and equal across the board for different areas. Consistency on these license conditions is needed, especially in the core district. So one thing I wanted to go over in the license renewals in this area, since this is certainly something we get a lot of complaints on because everyone can hear the noise, right? So I went through and listed the noise complaints. When I say call for service, that means direct calls to dispatch here at the police department. So those would be official recorded calls. Pretty much in all these cases, calls for service came in. They were addressed in most every case. The establishment was told and asked to turn things down if the officer thought, it still was loud or above a noise level, and everyone complied. We certainly did not have any issues in that sense. So this is why I would like to have more consistent policy on this. But we've had some email complaints on certain locations. Nothing that I felt was necessary for action outside of, again, having some consistent policies. There were some unfair levels in different areas, but so I listed those for you there if you have any questions on that. Questions there? No? Okay. Okay, and again, non-renewals in this area, I listed 3 properties. Again, a sale of property and new application will be required for all of those.
Matt, do you have something? You're muted, Matt.
There we go. Sorry. Quick question on those, Amy. When someone calls in with a noise complaint, with the new noise law that's in place, are we checking it by with a machine, like are the police using a machine to know the level, or how are we doing it now, just so the public knows?
So I missed kind of the very first part, but we do not currently, and this is why I would like to have some sort of consistent policy in place for entertainment license specifically, but we do not use a machine to measure. I know in the past we've looked at that, and certainly I don't know if Chief Pittman can speak on if he's there, but it's not consistent. It's not what we feel is something that can easily be used as far as a decibel meter or something of that sort. I've measured the same decibel in front of, live band and down the street, which is traffic. So it doesn't seem to be a consistent way to measure that. So, again, it's based on, number of how far away you can hear it. It shouldn't be too far from the property. Trying to notice if we can determine where it is coming from. Some of this I put on here that you get called in on one establishment, mostly on Town or Queequegs, but also, right behind them is also another entertainment license as well. So generally we would go to both and ask them to turn down, and we haven't had a problem with that. So as of right now, there isn't a number or a machine that it's being measured by. So, but that's something I think we need to establish as far as how that is determined. And again, consistency, you have 2 of those locations that are able to play music, not live, but music outdoors, but across the street at Rose and Crown, they're required to close their windows at 10 p.m. So that's not consistent, the same area within consistent maybe rules. So we'd like to see it be more consistent across that area. And that would be helpful as far as how you manage it and enforce it.
Right. And that's kind of why I'm asking the question is, as we all know, there's other outside areas that want to have music, et cetera. And before we, head down that rabbit hole, I would like to make sure we understand, how we're going to do it. So it is consistent, it is fair, and, the officers do it the same, and I'm not sure if you don't measure it, I'm not sure what the standard will be. If it's, you can't make noise that's heard on the lot next door, the people next door could be calling every single day and saying, come on over, you can hear me. So I just think it's something we really need to nail down because of what is happening.
Mr. Chair.
Sorry, I was muted. Go ahead. Yeah, sure.
That's okay. Just quickly, the noise bylaw specifies how the noise is to be determined if it's a complaint or not. I think what Amy's getting at is that the licenses themselves are not consistent as to what they are allowed to do and not do. And if they were, it would be a lot easier to enforce complaints.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Thank you. And I definitely think we need a deeper dive on this. And hopefully we will get that chance to do so, and distinguish between live, non-live, and districts as far as what is allowed, so that it is easier for us. So I agree and promise we will get into a deeper dive of that. Any other questions? I move to the next.
I just want to give a chance. It's a public hearing. Anyone from the public would like to speak on entertainment, the renewal of the entertainment licenses? Not policy. It's not a policy discussion, even though it's somewhat connected. All right, I see no hands. Go ahead, Amy.
Okay, I will get into one that's going to require some work this year. So mobile food units, popular category. Everyone wants to have a mobile food unit these days. It's one we get the very most requests for each year. So, and it's something that is very much on the top of our list for the licensing group to do. Currently, we have some requirements and conditions on mobile food unit licenses that include operation within 500 feet of a licensed food establishment is prohibited. Different things on trash. They have to have a return to their base of operations daily, have a license with a commercial kitchen, things of that sort. We don't allow service in the core district. Parking in downtown time spaces require a street blocking permit, things of that sort, if they are down there for other reasons. So that is on the top of our list. I want to talk a couple things on notes on from the past 2 years of mobile food units. One thing I think we need to stress and be very strict about is that we've had multiple instances of businesses that they purchased, design, advertise all these units before applying for any permits, identifying locations for vending. We need to be very specific that purchasing a vehicle is not recommended before going through a plan review and establishing a plan for service locations. That's been a big problem that we've had. Then the pressure comes on us to try to find these folks a place to vend or to have their business. It's solely their decision, and it's not our responsibility at that point. In response to that, I think what we are proposing based on the experience of the past 2 years is going into 2022 is not only updating and improving an overhaul of the regulations to provide, stronger regulations. I think what we have right now is very loose guidelines, is to add a process for location permits, identifying these locations, going through ahead of time, private or public property, permits that meet all health, zoning, and licensing requirements ahead of time, so that there's a better system for that. We have limited spaces that are available. So we've had some issues with folks possibly selling in a residential neighborhood or other things of that sort. So that needs to be really dealt with this year on many levels, and it's in process right now. So I hope to have that in the beginning of 2022. Also identify restricted districts to include downtown core and possibly heavily populated mid-island with a lot of different restaurants in that area. And establish application deadlines for the year. So that is the review. As I included all of the current mobile units that we have. We've had some violations. I've included those. And again, a lot of it involves locations that were not approved or not requested. We've gotten a lot of complaints because of that from either residents or other businesses. Most of the complaints, there's been a violation issued for zoning that needs to be resolved, but I'm hoping dealing with that on a location issue will help for next year and possibly determining if there's a need for a cap or anything of that sort. So that will be brought to the select board for review as well. Any questions?
This is a public hearing. Anybody like to comment on this? Oh, Christy, go ahead.
Just more of a comment that I think this past year was really tough in terms of every business with labor shortages. So just going forward with making policy decisions in the future, I would kind of look at some of the complaints of kind of 2020 and 2021 lightly compared to other years and moving forward, just because I know there was a lot of issues this year in terms of noise, but that was also limited staff to contain things.
Thanks, Christy. Any other comments from the public, board members? Looks like we're good.
Okay, great. I'm gonna go to easy ones before the one that we need some discussion on. So another renewal is motor vehicle sales, class 1, 2, and 3, which are just for the sale of one being new or used motor vehicles, buying and selling of secondhand motor vehicles, and also buying and selling cars and trucks for parts and salvage. This is pretty standard. We have our same group here. There are some zoning, fire, and other requirements for them, but no other comments on that group. Any questions there?
I think we can move on.
Yep. So next one, quick one is flower produce, shellfish, street vendors. Couple comments on this. It does come under street vendor license governed by our bylaw, chapter 107. Which allows nothing, prohibits the sale from trucks or stalls of vegetable, fruits, or flowers grown locally by the owner of the farm or premises where such vegetables, fruits, and flowers are grown. So the one thing here, looking ahead to 2022, is kind of reassessed in this area, approved locations currently on Main Street in Sconset. Map out the spots, confirm actual use by these licensed vendors, and determine a process. We get a lot of requests for this. We want to make sure we know what we have, what's allowed, and a process for new applications, since we have several, to allow for a fair process. So that is the goal heading into 2022. As far as renewals, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 current ones. With the locations listed there, some on Main Street and one, I believe, in Sconset. So any questions there, comments?
Are you considering adding more spaces, or what is the thought process?
Hey, no, I think it's just organizing and making sure. I know there's some people saying, well, that's not being used, that's not being used. Kind of reassessing and understanding what's being used, what the traditional locations are. And then coming back, determining, we want to keep those spots. And then if there's a process to put out an application for those that might want an addition, a spot that's available that hasn't been used. And so that we can do it fairly, because we do get quite a bit of requests, and I want to do that fairly and have an answer for them moving forward. So it's just a cleanup and seeing what's out there. So, okay. If that's good there, I'm going to come to the one that probably needs the most discussion. We good to move?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is rental car agencies and medallions in renewal. So I have a couple comments here. So in the packet, obviously, I went over the requirements per our bylaw. Each rental car agency license, it's governed through Chapter 58 bylaw. Each agency needing to be licensed each year by the select board, which we're doing with renewal. In addition, each agency is assigned a set number of medallions. Each car used by the agency for rental must be issued a medallion with the current car registrations that's submitted to our office with the application. License fee being 100, medallion fee being 100 for every vehicle not registered on Nantucket. And then traditionally until December 31st, they have until then to pay for each of those medallions and $100, excuse me, for each medallion not used per calendar year. And they do not pay for the medallion if it is issued a registration on Nantucket. So a couple things. First, as far as non-use of medallions, like I said, if it's not used, they have to pay for the medallions by December 31st per the bylaw. Most use them all. I have included in this list this year. And again, I don't know if we want to throw this up, Erica. If not, not a big deal. But with the 700 medallions, we kind of broke it down into the number of medallions. Thank you. Number of medallions assigned to each agency out of that 700. And this is, I believe, Ben, since it was established in the 90s there. And then I put the number of medallions used. As you'll see, a couple of the agencies might not have used one or two and they paid for them, but traditionally they use them all. I did identify the one with Hertz that they traditionally don't use all of their medallions, or they do not give us registrations for. So I just wanted to kind of put this on notice. There has been warnings in this case as well. Over the years, it's traditionally an average of about 75 per year. I went back 5 or 6 years. It's been between 60 and 140 medallions of their 310 that have been, we've been told, or they've been paid for as not used or were not attached to a registration. We have met with them. We have noticed them over the years, noticing just through drive-throughs, cars without medallions. So I just wanted to put this on notice that this is public. This is something that needs to be taken care of, but this is something in the medallions that needs to be taken care of as we move forward. We haven't had the ability to inspect as much as we would like. Hopefully we will have that ability in the next year. So I just wanted to make that public as far as that situation. We are recommending renewal, but again, it's something that needs to kind of be taken care of. In the area here we need to talk about is non-renewal. In this category for Island Buggies, they have 10 medallions assigned. Now that puts us over at 702. I don't know the exact history of why there's the 2 extra, but they have the 2 extra that goes over the bylaw limit of 700. The issue here, and as I've included in the packet, my notice to Island Buggies and what has been happening is that these were transferred in a personal transaction back, I believe, in 2015 into 2016. Prior to when I was in this position, I wasn't present, but it was transferred at that time. Since that time, that business has not been in operation in any way. We have been, I think, very, we've worked with them and have given them chance after chance to this person to start up the business and get it back running again. Again, they've paid for the license and the unused medallions each year. We brought this up again in 2019. We were promised that someone in the family was taking this business over. We relented again, probably should not have, but did. And again, last year, the medallions were not paid for. There was a direct violation of the bylaw. And I finally just brought it to your attention now that we have the time to do this. I don't believe we should renew this license. First of all, there's a violation already of the bylaw. That's an easy one. What we're going to ask for, again, is direction from the board. I don't believe this has happened before, where the board, per the bylaw, has to make a decision. They can choose to, if they choose to non-renew, make a decision on the medallions. Whether, and you don't have to do this tonight, it's to provide direction as to whether we retire medallions or reissue. In the reissue sense, I have about 5, I think, registered requests for medallions from new businesses. Folks call us all the time wanting to do this, and we've had none available. If we do come to a point of wanting to reissue or to consider that, then I would ask for that direction, and we would provide different ways to do that fairly. to allow for fair redistribution. In the case of Island Buggies, should they want to participate in that, they certainly could, but I don't believe that it's fair to continue to renew this license for a business not in operation.
Amy, can I stop in there? So we're here to approve all the renewals and non-rules. And then
Correct.
later we can decide if we want to put them in a hopper, put them in medallion purgatory, that
Correct.
later.
Correct. We would just ask for some direction, how you would like to go. And we can certainly do that at a separate hearing.
Any questions?
How deep have you dived into those issues? Not very yet, or?
Which issues specifically?
Well, just, I assume that we can choose not to renew, you know, and then in the case of Hertz, could we choose not to renew 75 licenses? Could we say we're renewing, but we're not giving you, I can't remember the number, 300, we're giving you 200?
Correct. I think what we can do, and I certainly have been talking about this for a couple of years as I've been watching this, we can vote to renew licenses tonight. So the agency license can be renewed, and then direction being a hearing to discuss the number of medallions. I think I would want to handle that in a separate hearing to allow them the chance to be present and discuss, and as we would in any sort of situation where we might be taking something away from a license or amending it. So tonight would be a vote on the license itself to operate as a rental car agency on Nantucket, and we can select a future time so we can give proper notice. Yeah.
And that makes sense. I think I look at, because we looked at what the airport wanted to be unlimited rental cars. I'm not sure we need that if the ones we have actually just get used, is how I look at it. And then we have some guarantee that we don't end up with 1,000 or 1,500 at some point. And so I think that's, so when we are allowed, we talk about that, we should think about it. The other issue I have is how does car rental sharing, Turo, that type of thing factor into this? How far have we researched that? What are our options there? Because it doesn't seem fair to me that these guys jump through all these hoops and other people are running the same business and not doing anything. There's a fairness issue.
Completely agree. And I think in those issues, we certainly need more legal counsel on that. Technology has gone a lot farther than legislation has. It goes quicker, like we had with the taxi thing. I'm forgetting right now because the transaction wasn't in the vehicle. So there are certain different limitations on what we can do, but it would be good to start to pay some attention to. And this is a start to do that. So we would need to investigate that further.
And I would like some, before we decide what to do with, in the next round, it would be great to have that legal opinion and figure out what we can do. And maybe some of those are going off to those existing businesses. If we have 100 vehicle licenses, let's say, maybe some of those are going off to our owners. So we aren't taking something away, but we aren't just letting it grow unfettered. And so, it's a fairness issue. So I think the sooner we get that information, the sooner we can figure out what a fair way to handle it is.
Agreed.
Matt, can we go to Arthur Reed? Has his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I represent Island Buggies, and I've seen the letter and materials that are in your file. Let me give you a little bit of background on this. Island Buggies was created some years ago by a gentleman named Wayne Siltanen, and more recently, he and his wife, Dolly Siltanen, divorced in a Virginia court. And as a result of that divorce, this business, the ownership of Island Buggies, was awarded to Mrs. Siltanen as part of the judge's determination on the divorce settlement. Mrs. Siltanen obviously does not have a background in the business of auto rental, and it took her some time to come to grips with what would be necessary in connection with getting the business going. And 2 years ago, just before the pandemic, she was working with me and went through the process with help from her son to attempt to get the business going, to obtain the cars that would be necessary to exercise the rights under the 10 medallions that have been awarded to the business. And obviously with the pandemic hitting just under 2 years ago, just when they were going to work on securing the cars, obviously that was a terrible time to make a business decision in terms of setting up what effectively at that point would be a new car operation, getting the cars in place for the season. So the result is that it's been on hold. She has in fact attempted to pay the fees that were due in order to keep the license in place, to keep the medallions in place. And now is being told that she can't do that. Her son, Wayne Sultanen Jr., who I believe is on this call and will be speaking in a minute, is working with her on it. There was a question about the LLC that was revoked for failure to file annual reports by the state of Massachusetts. The back due reports have now been filed, and the reinstatement of the LLC as a duly qualified Massachusetts business is in process at the present time. And again, under the circumstances, this is an important asset as far as the Sultanen family is concerned, and they really want the opportunity to go ahead and operate this year and this coming year, and to justify the existence of their rental car operations. And if Wayne is on the line, I would like to ask that you recognize him.
Thank you, Arthur. Wayne, go ahead.
Hi. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Arthur, for explaining that. So yeah, I think Arthur did a great job in explaining the circumstance in which we are under, trying to get everything going for 2022, and in operating in good faith and wanting to commit to going forward with it in the right way. It has been extremely difficult, not only for this time in our family, but then with everything just going on. With everything going on, we ended the meeting with Amy mid to late 2019, and then come first thing 2020, as we all know, it just wasn't the right time to start that business up. And so, we are moving forward with all the appropriate actions toward making the business feasible and operating in 2022. So we would highly recommend you guys reconsider the motion of renewal of these medallions.
Thank you, Wayne. I have a question for you and Arthur, and maybe you can answer this. Are you planning on selling this business? Or are you trying to keep the medallions?
No, we're planning on operating. We don't plan on selling.
Okay. I'm just curious because it could be an asset to,
Sure,
to run the business or sell it or lease it or whatever.
Sure. And that property, was built and designed for running that business as well. So yeah, we don't have any plans to sell.
Thank you. Amy?
Thank you.
Thank you. A couple things. I didn't mean to litigate this whole thing this evening. Certainly if they, like I had mentioned, wanted to dispute a denial or dispute a decision, we can certainly set a hearing date for that. And as I said in my letter, the pandemic, as horrible as it was, this meeting was a meeting similar to what we're having now in September of 2019, saying, how long are we supposed to hold something for you on this business? How fair is this to people come to me all the time, wanting to start a business, wanting to do something with rental? I'm like, I have no medallions left. Why are you holding these? So we had this meeting in 2019, And then the pandemic obviously hit 6 months later, never heard anything. They certainly paid for the license itself in 2020. We sent the fee schedule for the medallions and just got notice from them 11 months after the due date to pay for the medallion. So I'm at the point of, and we, again, don't need to litigate all this tonight if you don't want to, but at the point of why have bylaws and things in place if we just keep making exceptions? I mean, we've been very generous.
If I could pop in there, Amy, so we're not going back and forth. And what would the board like to do? We'd like to approve everything and then have another hearing on medallions, because I feel like it's not just this, it's also the Hertz and it's the whole policy. I feel like it's all connected. What would the board like to do? Christine?
I think that makes sense to hold a public hearing for the medallions, and we can move forward with the other licenses.
So how would that work? Would we approve all the licenses and hold off on the medallions and continue that section of it, even though it's all one hearing? Libby or Erica, how would this work? Or Amy?
I think, and again, being a local license and a local bylaw, we can certainly approve the renewal process for all the others and, approve the renewal process and certainly look to amend certain things with this. I don't think, it's a little different than liquor where we have some state statutes to deal with in entertainment. We can approve the licenses and then hold the ones that we did put forth for renewal and hold a hearing separately for the determination on whether to suspend or revoke the license and medallions for Island Buggies.
I'm not really sure what that meant, Amy.
That means, sorry, I didn't explain that correctly. So I'm saying that we can, what we have put forth for renewal goes forward, and that we vote to hold a separate hearing on the license of Island Buggies. And
so I think it's not just Island Buggies, it's the whole medallion issue.
Right.
Maybe it's too big and would take too long. I'm just trying to figure out what exactly are we doing here so we can move it on, and because we could talk about it for 30-45 minutes with Arthur and Wayne and everybody here.
Correct. And we can do both. If I may, we can do both. Certainly have a discussion on the medallions and the process itself. I certainly was recommending Hertz to go ahead with renewal of their license. I think just as we would in a liquor or other situation, have a separate hearing for Island Buggies license.
Okay, Matt, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I get confused on this because we're saying, well, let's approve them. But then if we want to take some away from Hertz, we'll talk about that, and then maybe we'll do it next year. I don't. So I look at it kind of clean. I say let's approve all except Island Buggy and Hertz, and then let's talk about those when we have recommendations on how to act on those. Or approve Hertz for everything that they had last year, and then let's talk about it. I'm having a hard time with these. Well, here we'll do the first part, and then we'll do some more work someday, and we'll come back. I can't handle that.
Yeah, and I think the one issue with that, Matt, I think we're heading in the right direction. Is there's no policy behind it. So if there's another company that didn't use two, what do we do with those? I mean, Hertz is obviously bigger, and Island Buggies, we have those two issues, but I'd rather have some kind of policy around it, and then apply it to each one.
It's not. This has been around a long time. They all tried to figure out a fair way if someone wasn't using them to, all the different all the different rental agencies got together 20 years ago or so, and they all tried to figure it out. They couldn't. They were going to eat each other alive. So they just said, you know what, let's keep it how it is. We're real happy the way it is now. So, that, and they've warned us over the years about changing it too much because they've all built their businesses up around these expectations. Now, I can see us changing if a business has been operating, with less capacity. I could see us, saying if you don't use it, it would be a fair thing to say. You don't use it for a year or two, we're going to claw it back and we're going to put them out for bid. I could see something like that. or we're going to retire them because we have too many cars on the island. I think that if we had a ration, we could, I can see doing something like that, but.
Well, that's the thing. We don't have any rationale behind it yet. So I'm just trying to figure out, Erica, you could kind of help us. I mean, like, what can we do within the public hearing? Exactly. Can we split things up, continue some, approve some?
I mean, the public hearing is for the totality, I
Right.
believe, and for all of the categories. So I'm honestly not really sure if we can say we're going to approve all the rental agency renewals with the exception of 102 for Hertz and the 10 for Island Buggies, which will renew at a later time at a separate public hearing. I mean, I just don't know the legality of that.
Yeah. Amy?
What I would say is two things. One, with the rental car agencies, we're looking at two separate things. We're renewing licenses. Okay, license to operate. With those license to operate, there are a certain number of requirements that are required, and they get issued throughout the year when car registrations come in, when they bring cars over, things of that sort. So this is a license renewal. Secondly, the public hearing is not required. It's something that I think traditionally has been done here, and that's why we removed liquor, because it was not required for a public hearing because it's an administrative function. Some places don't have hearings for these. There's requirements to renew a license and issue a license. So as far as a public hearing, we certainly kept it to get feedback, to get other sort of comments from the public, if there's anything that we needed to pursue further. So what I'm suggesting is that this is a vote and acknowledgement of the renewal process of these licenses, and that with Hertz, certainly we're recommending approval of the renewal for their license. And should we look to look at their license specifically and taking back medallions or discussing that, we should do so as we would if a restaurant had some sort of violation or was too loud, or we wanted to look at amending their entertainment license. We would then schedule a separate hearing for that license. So I'm requesting the same thing. If we want to have a discussion further on rental car agencies as a whole and the medallion process as a whole, we can certainly do that on a regulation basis. But when we're talking about a clawback or any sort of amendment to a specific license and what is issued to that license, then each of those licenses deserves a hearing on its own. Does that make sense?
I think so. So we could approve all of this and still bring back any questions of medallions and let whoever we're talking about know ahead of time so they can prepare, and we can make changes.
Correct. And as I mentioned earlier, as far as a license denial, and why do I not have it in front of me? As far as legal on that for local licenses, if a licensee that was unhappy with a change or a denial could likely file a complaint to challenge it, certainly would be in this case, they can challenge a non-renewal and have a hearing. And the board should make sure that with any decisions, there are some reasons and or documentation on the record to counter any claim that the decision was arbitrary or inconsistent with other similar licenses.
Okay.
So we can certainly vote to non-renew and they could request.
Okay, I think I'm understanding it now. So if we voted all your recommendations in tonight, like we'll make, so as a hypothetical, we make a motion, all the non-rules go into effect, and Island Buggies would not get their license.
Correct.
Right, and we could bring that back at another time.
Correct. They can
Or
certainly.
we could make a full motion, everything, and not make a decision on Island Buggies and push that to another time.
Correct.
Okay. Because we're not voting on medallions right now. If we took all your recommendations, that's just all the information behind it. This is just for the license. Is the board, is everybody understanding of this? Matt says yes. Dawn has left. Dawn left about 5 minutes ago for minutes, right around 7.
Oh, sorry.
Christy, Melissa, Matt, any direction you want to go with this? Would you like me to make a motion, or?
I think we could do it either way, Jason. We can either accept the recommendations as is, or we can, accept Island Buggy as in and then take them out. Either way, I'm not. I guess I'm asking Melissa or Christy if you have any,
I'm fine with either way.
I know it's hard. I feel comfortable either way too, but I guess we have to pick a path. So
Maybe the path that doesn't force Island Buggies to go down a legal path and have to, appeal it or something like that. If we still want to talk about it, if it's connected to medallions, that would be more whatever decision that would be. Erica?
Maybe you make a motion to approve all with the caveat that you plan to bring some licenses back for a separate public hearing to review their medallions.
so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, Matt. All those in favor, Melissa?
Aye.
Matt?
Thank you, Erica.
Aye.
Christy?
Okay.
Jason, aye. That passes 4-0. Thank you, Arthur and Wayne, for your patience, letting us think through that. We'll be in touch on future meetings.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, Arthur.
Sorry, I just realized that you never closed the public hearing before you made the motion. And I'm assuming the motion was for all categories and the public hearing was going to be for obviously the car rentals.
Yes. So do we need to, let's close that public hearing. The public hearing is closed. Do we need to take a motion again? Outside of,
I'll make the same motion we made a minute ago.
And I'll second.
okay, all's in favor, Melissa?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Jason, aye. That passes 4-0. Thank you all for that discussion. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you very much.
Okay, town managers report.
Okay, we'll have to sort that prior item out tomorrow because I am at a total loss as to what happened there. The 2022 4th of July activities update. So I've had a group of town staff and Chamber of Commerce representatives meeting since summer to figure out how best to coordinate, organize, possibly reconfigure 4th of July 4th of July activities for 2022. Since 2019, when we sort of had the normal 4th of July events on Main Street, a lot has changed, including COVID pandemic induced issues, as well as I think, as you all know, an evaluation of the town's ability to sponsor and or manage large scale events. So we've come up with a little bit of changes that still, I think, honor a visit to Main Street for activities and events, and also offer other services and activities and I guess events, I would say, in other locations of the downtown, including Children's Beach, Federal Street, possibly the Athenaeum. Karen McCumber, who could not be present tonight, is our entrepreneur representative from the chamber. She gave me a little thing to say about this. Janet, I forget if I sent this to you or not, but so there's an
Karen is here.
Oh, Karen is here. Oh, sorry, Karen. I guess I don't really actually need to get into it right now. Janet, I think hopefully is going to take us through our schedule of events and where they are intended to take place. Chief Murphy can briefly review what will happen with the ever popular water fight, which I think in our plan here would continue on in a somewhat reconfigured manner. And then the sort of newish offerings, maybe Karen could cover those.
I'm happy to do that. Thank you, Erica, for putting that up there. I would say that the internal group across many departments was expanded to businesses and other groups offering programming on the 4th, including the Unitarian Church. The collaborative effort has been very impressive, and I think we have a good plan to bring the 4th of July activities back to Main Street and to expand them to Children's Beach, as well as a reconsidered water contest on Main Street. I will lay out the plan and then ask my colleagues in attendance to add their comments. let me start by saying that this new articulation of July 4th activities, especially on Main Street, is focused on safety. So you'll see here that we have two venues for the morning of the 4th of July to consider here. The Main Street activities is the Declaration of Independence has been moved. It's a new time. They moved it from 9 to 10 a.m. to accommodate what we're planning to do on Main Street. At 11 o'clock, we'll have some musical performances with, I'm happy to say that the Nantucket Community Music Center will organize with a national anthem, focusing on their student groups. We'll have a flatbed truck or some kind of stage or something for them to perform on. And then we will have the 11:30, we'll have a parade, dog parade at 11:30. I'm going to finish my speech here, but we'll come back to Chief Murphy to talk about the contained water contest. We're also talking about having food trucks that Amy Baxter will organize on Federal Street for the morning crowd, because there aren't many places that offer breakfast. And we do want to encourage people to come to Main Street. And there'll be an entrepreneurs market that I'll ask Karen to talk about in a minute. We're moving most of the traditional activities that we had on Main Street to Children's Beach, because the concern that I have had was the potential for injury or harm running around on those cobblestones, small children, families, whatever. So we're moving the Matt Fee. Thank you, Matt Fee, for the tea toss. The photo booth, the activities that we used to do in the evening at Children's Beach, we're going to do in the morning at Children's Beach. And we'll have the puppet show, a bike parade, maybe a hat parade. And I'm looking at my notes to see what else we're talking about there. Oh, that hat parade. So we're going to have a couple of different venues. We will wrap those up in time for people to be able to get back to Main Street for this contained water contest. And I stress the word contest because I think Chief Murphy will be able to explain why it's different from a water fight. So I would turn it over to Chief Murphy to comment on that aspect of the program, because it's his great idea.
Good evening, all. Thank you, Janet. This water fight is what was a water fight, excuse me, for many years has really concerned me for safety, with the hoses being moved around, people tripping over them, the water on the street, and just the matter of there being no outcome as great as it was, is just everybody getting wet. So I've thought for many years of how we could reinvent this. Never really said to cancel this, and reimagine and reinvent. And the idea that I had, and what we're going to try to go with, is a contained area set up through the metal barricades or some sort of fencing. Just up past the pharmacy, the normal area where we are anyways. So that would be actually where the fire trucks and the hoses would be. And then there'd also be, to add some level of contest to it, barrels on either end with a 55-gallon drum you can think of, with no tops. And the idea being is you work to fill the other competitor's barrel. And whoever has the most water in the other person's barrel at the end is the winner of the contest. This will take and remove a lot of the dangers that have scared me for many years, with the hoses being pulled around, people running, small children tripping the wet cobblestones, or a hose stream hitting somebody and knocking them over onto the ground. And the cobblestones wouldn't be very forgiving. And I hope that this will kind of keep that tradition alive and make it a much safer event going forward.
And to point out that we would not be inviting people to bring their water cannons and their water balloons, because we've been saying no water balloons for years now, or water pistols, that it would be a contest between the two fire companies, not a general water fight.
Yeah, we also wouldn't have the portable bathtub down there for everybody to fill those appliances up. And hopefully we can do a little PR campaign so people won't bring them and take the water out of the street and fill everybody's ear with the wonderful Main Street sand.
And Karen Macomber is on too. One of the ideas that we've had is to have Sustainable Nantucket have their farmers market on the 4th of July, because St. Mary's Fair will be on the 2nd. So we'll have that activity there as well. And Karen is talking about having an entrepreneurs fair there, which the town has been generously funding the entrepreneur program through her organization. And it would be a great opportunity to have an economic benefit for that. So I'd ask Karen to speak a little bit about that.
Sure, and I'll keep this very brief. I think what we would love to do is bring in some earlier stage companies. So folks that can't necessarily qualify for Sustainable Nantucket Marketplace, but they still have great products and services that I think everybody would love to see, have a chance to try it, try the concepts, maybe have some exposure to potential investors, because as we know, our summer folks might be interested in doing that kind of thing. So it's the first time we'd be able to do this outside of just doing our pitch competition Shark Tank. We'll be super careful about who we select, and we'll make sure that they're ready to roll. But I think it would be wonderful. It's Independence Day. What's more independent than starting your own business?
Happy to take any questions.
I think it's great, Janet. I think it's a lot of thought has been put into it to how to make it safer and to continue it on. And I'm sure we'll learn a lot from this next year and expand and go from there. Melissa?
Thanks, Jason. I was going to say something really similar. It sounds like a lot of really great creative thought and taking some of the concerns, but also the community's passion for our Main Street gatherings and really coming up with a win-win situation. I guess I wonder, I know that Chief Murphy was talking about a PR campaign. And so Janet, how do you hope to reach people to spread this news, and when do you hope to start it? Because that's a big shift in habit.
It is a big shift, and that's why we wanted to come to you in December, and why we've been talking about it since August. I think we should immediately start a social media campaign that says, like we did with the water balloons, we started as soon as we possibly can, and let people know that and we've had a complication with the social media saying the water fight is coming back. Well, the water fight isn't coming back. There's a new articulation of what that contest is, and we need to get that word out there quickly. And we need the social media and the press and WCAI to understand that we have not backtracked and gone back to the past, but we have a new version of it because of our concerns about public safety. And I would say that we need to start that immediately after the holidays through Florencia and the social media that we have at Culture and Tourism, and probably the police station, the fire department as well. Any way we can get it out there to let people know that this is what is going to be different this year. I expect that I probably will not be on Main Street. I'll probably be over at Children's Beach. So we still need to figure out who's going to be telling people who rolling up red wagons of water balloons that no, not today, or their bazookas, that can't happen.
Can I follow up quickly, Jason? Just one suggestion. Can you hear me at all? No.
Yep, go ahead.
One suggestion
would be to reach out to the Real Estate Association and all the lodging. I know that NARAB has a great network, and just to get that into their rental information and confirms this spring, I think would be really helpful.
They were very helpful with the Stop the Water Balloon campaign. So I think they will be helpful again with this. I don't know if Chief Pittman has anything to add to this plan. Nope.
Christy, you had your hand up.
Just more of a comment that I think this is a really great way to kind of spruce up the event and get businesses active in that morning. We've always closed down Main Street, and there's been a concern that that could actually hurt businesses. So I love the idea of having things spread out, different areas, and just having things going on side streets as well. I think it's going to drive more people downtown and help businesses.
Yeah, we'll still close Main Street. But and what I've heard from businesses is that the 4th of July is not a big day for them, but they don't not want to lose. They don't want to lose some activity on Main Street on the 4th of July either.
Yeah, I think it depends on the business, because when I had the handlebar, it was unmanageable. It was a line out the door. So some businesses might be really busy because of the extra people, some might not. So I think this will help pull some of that, equalize it a little bit. All right, nice work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that matter is concluded, I guess. So we'll proceed with our public outreach plan on 4th of July activities. Next, we have an end of year report from our DEI director, Dr. Kamal McCarthy.
Thanks, Libby, and still not technically doctor yet, but getting there. Submitting the dissertation sometime this week. So select board members, thanks for having me tonight. In my last one-on-one with the town manager, we decided that it was good to, it was a good idea to give a year-end report for the town's newest department. So I have like literally just 3 slides here that I'm going to just review with everyone really quickly. So as for 2021 accomplishments, the first thing I want to point out is that we hired a DEI director in January of 2021. So the town manager and HR director technically offered the position to yours truly in January, and I started on March 1st. One of the first things that I did when starting the position was to create a DEI mission statement, and I did that with the help of Chief Pittman, Erica Mooney, Kadeem McCarthy, my brother, Janet as Schulte, as well as the town manager for final input. I'm not going to read that to you all tonight. It's available on the DEI website. One of the other things, or a couple other things that we accomplished this year is the official acknowledgement of Juneteenth, as well as Indigenous Peoples Day. There are write-ups for both of those days and events on the DEI webpage as well. But just to recap really quickly, the DEI office, the Nantucket Equity Advocates, the Cultural Tourism Office, and the Museum of African American History hosted at least multiple events with Dr. Francis Cartoonan to acknowledge Juneteenth. The write-up itself acknowledges that Juneteenth celebrations have been going on Nantucket for multiple years, as the Indigenous Peoples Day acknowledges the fact that there was a non-binding town warrant article this past annual town meeting, yes, that the town member, the community voted for in favor of acknowledging Indigenous Peoples Day locally, and it talks about how that came about, as well as the fact that and Nantucket's Wampanoag history. The last accomplishment that I would like to address really quickly is that the DEI office launched the Meet initiative. I think I was here in August when I mentioned this idea of the fact that all town employees are a part of the Nantucket Employment Empowerment Team, NEAT. And so what the Meet initiative did was to propose the fact that we were going to talk to 4 employees and just share their employment stories according to them, what do they do for their work. I am happy to report that technically that initiative is complete, and we don't necessarily have to continue it, but in my last one-on-one with the town manager, we've decided to continue it into 2022 as well. Some other things before moving to the next slide, just to note really quickly, is the letter of solidarity with the Asian American Pacific Islander community in regards to the Georgia tragedy that is not mentioned on this slide. I personally attended at least a dozen professional webinars just to get a better understanding on DEI and what I'm supposed to be doing in the position. And lastly, for this slide is the fact that the Nantucket DEI office is now a part of the Massachusetts DEI coalition. The next thing that I just wanted to share with everyone is the DEI strategic plan. So this past April, the town issued, I guess is about, yeah, just read the slides sometimes. The town issued a RFP to engage a consultant or firm to conduct a DEI strategic plan. Long story short, a review committee convened and we unanimously selected Tangible Development LLC, and the select board approved a contract with that organization in August of 2021. This strategic plan process is going to be 18 months in duration, And the group of individuals that are just leading it along that time period are Roberto, Janet, Amanda, Florencia, Graham, and myself. I guess I'll just mention right now, I don't know if I'm supposed to, the consultant will tell me when they talk to me on Tuesday, but I'll just mention right now that the process has already started. We recently sent out an email to start the leadership readiness sessions. There is one representative from the select board on that already. That's Melissa Murphy. Hopefully she'll be able to join us. There is technically only one other seat open for another select board member. So if someone wants to join us, Mr. Chairman, you're welcome to do so, or the four of you can figure it out amongst yourselves. To move on to the last slide, the things that we're looking forward to for next year is for me to continue visiting town department businesses and nonprofits, just to talk about DEI specifically. We have two, what I like to call proven presentations that the community members and organizations are getting a lot out of. And that the first one just explains what DEI is all about on the island and how it came about, and historical controversies, as well as recent controversies, and as well as what the idea behind the plan was for the select board in establishing this position and department. The second presentation does a deep dive into the principles of DEI, identifying the fact that diversity, equity, and inclusions are different terminologies, that these concepts have different principles behind them. For example, one of my favorite things to stress is that equity, that there are multiple types of equity. Social equity is different from racial equity, which is different from employment equity, but I digress. Moving along, the goal for the rest of that, for the year, or for next year, some goals for next year rather, is to create some more DEI presentations, and separate from that is 2 or more training modules, and that has anything to do with what the consultants are doing. That's just me personally thinking that this is what I would like to continue offering to the community. Obviously, I will be coming back to the select board and to the community to give updates on the DEI strategic plan, as it says as needed there. But the plan has 3 phases. Technically, obviously, myself and the consultants will be back at the end of each phase and as needed throughout the process. And then lastly, the unofficial listening tour is continuing, and it's basically asking the community and anyone that I speak to really at every opportunity, what are your expectations for the DEI office and the director? And that's it. Any questions?
Melissa?
Thanks, Jason. No questions, Kamal, but well done in your first year. I think you've made a lot of great progress, a lot of behind the scenes work that we may not have seen outward in the community, but certainly within town administration, the town employees, and I'm really excited to get going on the strategic plan. So thanks for your leadership and congratulations on your doctorate program. Another notch closer.
Yes. Thanks.
Anybody else? Thank you for all your work, Kamal. I'll be happy to be a part of the group if you have another space.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Kamal. Thanks for coming on. Okay, if there's nothing else on that, then I'll move to the monthly town management report, which is in your packet. As usual, I'm not going to read the whole thing, obviously, but just some of the bold items, which are mostly the things we've been spending the most time on. So with regard to the Coastal Resiliency Plan, that is currently scheduled for adoption and acceptance by the board on January 12th. And in the meantime, what's come forward is the idea of a 2-day design thinking workshop with Arcadis. They have proposed this. It's in the planning stages. I think we've sent all of you information about it. And it would basically be a workshop for the policy makers, the select board, the planning board, possibly other boards like the CONCOM, the HDC, participation by the Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee, and town staff. The public would be invited, but it would be more focused towards a facilitated discussion as to how we are going to implement this plan, how we're going to prioritize things, who is going to do what, that kind of thing. Arcadis is launching this sort of assistance to communities with coastal resiliency plans. So I'm trying to get this worked out. I've sent you all an email and asked that you let us know what preferred dates are. It does seem at this point as though a preferred date is most likely in March. That also is when there probably is a large enough venue available for this meeting. So more on that as it progresses. The strategic plan, as you know, we had a pretty comprehensive update on all of your initiatives in the plan in October. We have an upcoming long-term planning solid waste workshop for February 7th, and that is going to be most likely a quarterly event. Nantucket Water Quality Improvement Plan. I know I've said this pretty much every month, but I really do have the sewer report that I'm getting ready to send you and schedule a meeting to review with you in January with Weston and Sampson. It is stuck in my email, and I'm going to yank it out of there shortly. Facilities master plan. Eventually, we're going to need some direction from the board as to the DPW facility potential relocation. But in the meantime, we're continuing an exploratory review of the Delta property in more detail with our consultants. Baxter Road long-term planning. I think you're all pretty well up to date on this. A scope of work for relocation services basically is scheduled for review with you all in January with Arcadis. Meetings, just lots of meetings going on. We have prep going on for the 2020 annual town meeting. We had a lot of meetings leading up to the fiscal 23 budget recommendations for the board. We have a weekly meeting with DPW. The Behavioral Health Steering Committee is ongoing. I have the Human Services Director, Jericho Mealy, on that, and I come on to it as best I can as well. Island Home continues the planning for new facility. We've had a couple of meetings with Waste Options over the last few months. The WPI group, we had a team assigned to us to help us develop and structure a citizen government academy, and they gave a nice presentation about a week ago. FinCom had its public hearing on citizen warrant articles last week, and I'm working on town admin comments on citizen warrant articles. I thought this was a little bit worth noting. Department of Public Health, the State Department of Public Health, sent an email out to public health officials and also town managers and other officials with regard to this webinar that they put out there, and it's titled here. And a number of us have done, stress seminars basically over the past several months, and this one had a lot of the same elements as I've done a couple of them. It had a lot of the same elements, but it was really interesting. And, everybody out there should do self-care when needed. And it sort of leads into mental health issues. And you wouldn't let a cut on your arm go untended. You shouldn't let stress go untended is basically the message there. I attended, and I think Christy maybe attended too, this Cape Cod Women's Coalition Roundtable discussion about making town meeting more accessible and inclusive. And Christy can speak on her observations. I wasn't able to go on to the whole thing. It was like about an hour and a half. I think it was on for around an hour. It was interesting. It honestly seemed to me like we're already doing a lot of things that they talked about. And some of the things that were discussed are not in law yet. Like, for example, can people vote remotely? No, they can't. Maybe with a representative town meeting they can, but we don't have a representative town meeting. We have an open town meeting. So anyway, under the select board reports, maybe Christy can say. And then projects, got a lot of projects underway. The Nobodere Fieldhouse is progressing. The third sewer force main. We're waiting on a final timeline on that. Obviously, we have supply chain impacts there. Waite Drive construction's underway. SPPF and Baxter Road is ongoing. Kamal just mentioned the DEI strategic plan. We are continuing to get an update underway for our committee handbook. Seasonal employee housing. We have a regular internal meeting, and we're working on getting out the town employee survey that I mentioned last time. We have a procurement. I think it's out, but I will have to double check that for town employee rental housing. Brian, is it out? Brian probably fell asleep by now, but oh.
I haven't fallen asleep, but I'll have to check. I think it is out, but I will double check and get back to you.
Let me know tomorrow. And we're continuing to prioritize public works projects. As I mentioned, the Island Home Facility. We will have a report coming to you all about the Children's Beach Pump Station within the next couple of months. We are working with our engineer on the end. Some other internal issues have come up about that project. A lot of items had been, well, not a lot, a few items had been put on hold because of COVID. Some of those are getting resurrected. Some are still kind of on hold. Personnel, we do have ongoing bargaining negotiations with many of our units. The transportation planner remains unfilled, although we are in communication with an applicant. DPW director is underway. Some interviews are going to be occurring in January. We have an interim island home administrator, as I mentioned earlier, who started this week. Interviews were occurring this week with for the park and rec manager position. And I hope to get that settled this month before the end of the year. And I will take up the assistant town manager for administration position right after the holidays. And that's about it.
Any questions or comments for Libby? Okay, thanks, Libby. A lot going on. Okay, we're going to continue review of FY23 general fund budget. This is as needed. Libby, is this just some updates, or is this just to give us some room?
This is something that's been on your agenda following the initial presentation that we gave last week. We just keep it on the agenda in case, as you've gone through the documents and things, if you have additional questions. Often there isn't much at this particular meeting, and sometimes there's more at the public hearing, which is scheduled for January 5th.
Okay. Any questions or concerns, thoughts from the board? Okay, everybody's shaking their head no, which means it's a great budget. Okay, move on. Continue review potential votes for select board sponsored 2022 ATM warrant articles. Do you have any updates on that, Libby?
Just since last week, and I think I actually mentioned these things last week, we are working on a general bylaw amendment with town council about short-term rentals. And I think you all got the general gist of this a couple of weeks ago when the planning director came in and reviewed the various options, and that one seemed to be the most preferable. So I hope that by the 5th, we will have something that we can actually review with you. And I think I mentioned last week that oddly, cemetery regulations are something that actually require the approval of town meeting. They're the rare regulation that requires town meeting approval rather than just a public hearing with the board. So it came up because the cemetery commission had some amendments to their regulations. We had town council review them and he said, oh, have these gone to town meeting yet? No. So we would like to put an article forward to adopt them basically as amended. And I think, there's one possible item that might be coming forward from the airport, which is not really a big deal. It possibly would be the establishment of a capital project stabilization fund, which the town did a couple of years ago. And they might, depending on retained earnings, have some funds to put into something like that. But I'm kind of waiting to hear. That was all I had.
Thank you, Libby. Any comments or thoughts? Okay. Thank you, Libby. Any committee reports? Christy?
I just wanted to touch base on the subject that Libby talked about, that we attended the webinar on how to make town meetings more inclusive. And I really had the same perspective. Everything that was suggested, people were suggesting things like mailing out the warrant ahead of time. We already do that. Suggesting that it be live broadcast so people can at least still listen. We already do that. One of the big things I got was towards the end, we were talking about how do you get renters involved, because so many times people feel like town meeting only affects property owners. And so towns there was no solution, but it just was a conversation starter of how do you get people involved? How do you get either their mailing contact information or email an email to be able to send them information to get them to participate. And interesting enough, a lot of towns are against Saturday town meetings because being a seasonal area on the Cape and the Islands. So we might want to reconsider in the future any sort of Saturday town meeting. I know we kind of go back and forth each month, but that seemed to be a really big barrier. And so I think that's something that we want to consider when we're thinking about an inclusive town meeting. But I would say I didn't get any great new ideas. I think we're doing everything we can, but we always have to keep pushing for more people to attend town meetings. So hopefully we'll keep leading the way and other towns will follow us.
Thank you, Christy. Well, since this is our last meeting of the year, I just wanted to thank all the board members, staff, committee members, commissions, councils who put all their time to make all this crazy thing called the municipal world and town of Nantucket make it work. It's not easy. It's been a tough couple of years, and I know town staff have, everybody's been pushed to the limit, and I think we realize it, and we don't thank everybody enough, and I'm aware of it, and just want to thank everybody. I really enjoy doing this, and I really enjoy working with this board. I really do. I'm not just saying it, and yeah, that's just kind of what I want to say. I think it's been difficult in the agenda meetings since Christy and I came in as chair and vice chair. It's really, Libby goes through everything that's on our plate, and we're trying to figure out how to prioritize it all. So you have all the town meeting and the budget and everything else that happens, and collective bargaining and HR, and then all these other really important things, PFAS and Wisconsin Beach Preservation and Baxter Road and coastal resiliency. I could go on with the really big things, short-term rentals, housing, human services, and it's there's only so much time. So how do we prioritize it? And I think that's been the biggest challenge. I think we've done as best as we could. Oh, and a pandemic and COVID and everything else. So it's been a pleasure working with you all this year. And I'd like to, if nobody else has anything to say, I'd like to leave us with a joke. I couldn't figure out a way to make this really be gender neutral, but what did one snowman say to another snowman? Does somebody smell carrots? Okay, that's what I'm ending with.
I'll make a motion to adjourn now. Thank you, Jason.
Second.
All those in favor? Melissa?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Jason? Aye.
Happy New Year, everyone. Have a great
Happy New Year.
holiday.
Thank you, Libby. Thanks, Erica. Bye.